when they say, look how much Jesus loved his friend, was when tears were coming down the face of the Son of God. Before the joy of resurrection comes off his lips, the tears of friendship run down his face.
When we decided to give our tears to our children, all it meant was that they mattered. Because it's like, I'm never gonna have that moment again. And my tears, they bathe the memory in dignity, and they bathe it in honor, and they mark it forever.
I have a window right now of being something different. So they become something different.
I steward nostalgia because I steward that my life mattered. If I don't really do the sadness, do I really do the joy? When I look back on almost 25 years of marriage, I'm so grateful that we learned, and we've spoken to this, that we've learned to embrace every season of life, because there has been a lot of sadness. And I think I want to unpack a few thoughts, because this is a really important topic for us, for me. I've learned to value it, because what I've observed as a pastor, a leader, someone who's done 16 years of discipleship schools, 20 plus years of camps, and all ages, old, young, teenagers, 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds. What I have observed is that when we suppress emotion, and we decide we're not going to do that because it's just too much, it will eventually come out. But if we learn, and I say learn on purpose, if we give space to learn how to do emotion, it will pass through. And it's not as scary as it seems it's going to be. But when we say, I'm not going to do sadness, I'm just going to look at the happy, happy, happy part, we push the sadness down. We push it to the back, of our hearts, when our heart is actually saying, this is really important to me. And to be sad about it is to honor life, the moment. And I can look, I've told this story a lot. I don't want to necessarily go very deep into it, but we, years ago when the kids were young, we lost a dog. Bella was her name. And, this is the sad dog story that everyone who's had pets has. And she got hit by a car, and it was devastating. And we had this moment with Cadence, our son, and he was probably 8 or 9, I think. And we brought him over to say goodbye to Bella after she had passed. And he fell on the ground. He put his hands on the dog. It was so visceral. I still remember it very clearly. And he just started screaming at the top of his lungs, weeping. It was so emotional. It was so visceral. He was embodying the grief, fully, and the sadness. And as a mother, I'm thinking, what should I do? I should comfort him. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I was literally going to do that, to put my hand, buddy, it's going to be okay. And it's one of really the only times I felt the Lord. It almost felt like the Lord grabbed my arm, don't do that, And in hindsight, I'm very grateful for it. And I just felt this, maybe I shouldn't do that. And then I really felt the Lord speak to me as a mother and say, Melissa, this, you don't need to say anything. This is exactly what Cadence is supposed to be doing. Wow. This is right. Yeah. This is a representation of the love he had for Bella. Come on. And I was like, oh my gosh, how many times do I go and just want to stop it? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. When actually all I really needed to do was weep and cry and let it pass through. And Cadence sat there on his knees, and we were all just a mess. And it lasted probably, 5-7 minutes, which is a long time to be in that level of emotion. And then he stopped and he sat back and he was like, okay, like we have to go bury Bella. Like we need to go, like it's time, let's go. And it was like the intensity, he let it pass through his body, his soul, his heart, his mind. And the acceptance came. Like Bella is gone. And now we need to go and we need to bury her and say goodbye. And I look back on that story as like such a pivotal moment for us, where the kindness of God was like, hey, there's a lot of sadness that's coming. And I don't need you to be afraid of it on my behalf. Like, I think there is a fear of like, if I get too deep in, like, but Lord, I really trust you. I'm just a little disappointed over here. And I'm going to go over here and do this disappointment and this sorrow and this sadness. And I'm going to come back really happy and joyful. But you're good and it's going to be okay. And I'm like, I just like, Jesus doesn't need us to do that. He made us humans as like beings that feel emotion. And when you learn to steward that with the Christ, with the Holy Spirit, with the heart of the Father, you become less and less afraid of where it's going to take you. And so for me, like I can look back on moment after moment when we decided to give our tears to our children. All it meant was that they mattered. It meant that the moment mattered. It meant that we were sad that it was over. Like we didn't stay. I remember, just so many times leaving our beach vacation, like our summer vacation, and all of us just tearing up. Because it's like, I'm never going to have that moment again. And my tears, like they bathe the memory in dignity and they bathe it in honor and they mark it forever as a holy moment. And so I think for us, like Christmas is such a repetitive celebration, obviously. And there are Christmases that like, our kids are like almost 23 and 19. Like we would like mega go back to them being little children, like waking up at like 6 a.m. wanting to open presents. And like we'd like go back if we could, because it was so holy.
Loved it.
We loved it. And I'm like, to give my children my adult children this emotion now, all it says to them is like, God, all those years mattered. And we're so it doesn't replace like it like comes up under the current moment. We're in a totally different moment right now. Like we're having so many different moments with our children, and they're all so beautiful. And they're making us reflect even deeper. And they're bringing more tears and sadness. And with that sadness is bringing the acceptance of like life is changing. And I'm glad that I'm awake for it. I'm glad that I'm able to receive this moment, and not just pretend like, no, I'm fine. I think it's a total misrepresentation of what joy actually is.
Wow.
So good.
Yeah.
Like joy is not happiness. The joy of the Lord is our strength. Like that deep joy has so much sorrow mixed in with it. I mean, the places I can look back and be the most proud of my joy is when I chose to fully give my heart, even when it was terrible.
Come on.
And hard, and it was full of so much sorrow and loss. And so I think for me, like it's just a very important understanding, because as someone who leads a lot of people, like I don't want people to miss their life because they're afraid that if I do this sadness, I'll never get to joy. And I'm like, oh, friend, like it's the opposite. Like do the joy and you're gonna get to sadness, because joy, like those moments are fleeting. Do the sadness and you're gonna get to joy, because sadness is fleeting. It's like waves of the ocean. Like we don't stay in any one emotion forever, but they lead into one another. If I don't really do the sadness, I really do the joy? It's the joy of having children for me is looking back on all the moments that I would give anything to have again. I recently asked the Lord, just because we're processing, we've been pretty open with how much we're processing our kids getting older. And I had a moment this summer with the Lord, and I said, Lord, I'm just like, I'm so sad it hurts, you know? And I was missing Cadence. He was on a trip, and I was sitting on the beach by myself, and I really felt the Lord ask me to do gratitude. I was like, great. I like, that would be a normal practice for me, not to get me out of sadness, but to honor the moment I was in. Like, I just felt the Lord, I want you to search for gratitude, not to fix it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, key. It is a key. I wasn't trying to fix my sadness. I was doing honesty with the Lord. And I started thinking about Cadence. I started thinking about just our life together. I started just thinking about, wow, like, life's changing really fast, and I love it, and I don't want it to change. But then I started thinking about the fact that I was missing my son, and how beautiful that is, that we have a relationship where I actually want to be with him, and he wants to be with us. And I started thanking the Lord for our friendship. It was really, really powerful. And I was like, oh God, thank you so much for what we've worked on, like the work we've done to stay and remain friends. And the sadness just like sat with me in a totally different way. And I prayed on the beach that day. I said, Lord, would you help me change my relationship to time? And I said, Lord, I feel sometimes like time is a robber, and it's come to take from me. But I would rather look at it as a dance teacher, that it's like, come to dance with me.
So good.
And I just felt, man, I sat on the beach, had my big old sunglasses on. I was bawling my eyes out. All these children were playing in the water. It was very like, you know, just precious. And and I just sat there. I'm like, Lord, just teach me to dance with time. Like, I want to waltz with it. I don't want to feel like it's coming to take away from me, but it's actually coming to teach me how to be a true and present mother, wife, friend, to fully embrace every season of my life. And that at the end of my life, I would know, like, I waltzed with time. Like, wow. I didn't freak out when it came, and I gave it my tears when it was necessary. And I laughed when we were all, you know, like, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, like, that I was able to do that. And so nostalgia is that for me. Like, nostalgia for me is one of the most precious gifts we have. It is I steward nostalgia because I steward that my life mattered. Come on. My children mattered to me. My marriage matters to me. My friends matter to me. Every moment we set the table beautiful to have a moment to remember. Yes. Like, that is why we go the extra mile, why we make the beautiful meals, why we like go away on these trips, is so that we create memory and create moments that are worth remembering. Yeah. And I think nostalgia is precious. Yeah. And I think there's no better time to dip into the gift of it and the permission of it than at Christmas time. Come on. I desire to help people learn to really embrace sadness. Yeah. So that you can embrace joy. Yes. So that you can embrace sadness. So that you can embrace joy. Yeah. And that movement becomes less and less scary. And we all become a little bit more awake to our lives. That we would embrace it fully and honor this one beautiful life we have, and honor that we were created by God himself, full of emotion. He is not afraid of our tears. Yeah. He is not afraid of our frustration. That we would embody that we were made in his image. So good. And that we would learn to walk with Christ in the full range of everything we're feeling, that it would be submitted to Jesus, and that we would able to just live lives that are present. Wow. Yeah.
That was a stunning response. I want to just say one little thing to tag on to it, because I just learned so much. I'm so thankful for you. It was so beautiful. We've been on quite a journey the last 10 years, specifically me, of learning about sadness.
Wow.
Brene Brown says we can't selectively numb emotions.
Yeah.
So I can't just I'm just going to numb sadness, but I want all joy has to give me, but I don't want sadness. The more I numb sadness, the more I'm numbing joy.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and the more I'm numbing fear, the more I'm numbing these other emotions. Like I can't selectively just cancel certain emotions.
Yes.
And I came to a breaking point in 2014 of not even realizing it, but I had been damming up my sadness, damming it like a river, like you dam, and I had been damming that river of tears, because our first 14 years of marriage, there was lots of joy, but there was lots of sadness. There was a river of unanswered prayers, specifically around your autoimmune.
Yeah.
And I came to a breaking point in 2014, and little did I know what was breaking was the dam of God is good, God is good, God is good. God is good. But what I'm saying is I didn't want to do the sadness of looking at unanswered prayer, looking at the pain, and so I just put on the hero cape and I'm going to be strong for Melissa. I'm going to pray harder. I'm going to fast more. I'm going to sing the songs that I'm supposed to sing. And I was just damming up the tears.
Yeah.
And it was bringing disconnection with us.
Yeah.
It was teaching my children something about sadness. And we came to this moment literally where I just had to let go of control.
Wow.
And I gave Melissa my tears about her sickness for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid to do that, because I thought a good husband doesn't cry. A good husband is strong. You know, like he lays down his life. There's like so many things in it. But in that moment of finally giving Melissa my tears about how sad I was that we couldn't have more children. Yeah. How sad I was that I felt so powerless. Like I feel the river in me right now of the tears. And it's but it was 14 years of tears I gave you. Yeah. And what it actually brought was crazy connection.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I love the moment at Lazarus's funeral when they say, look how much Jesus loved his friend, was when tears were coming down the face of the Son of God.
That's right.
Not when he did ruin the funeral, totally. But before the joy of resurrection comes off his lips,
That's right.
the tears of friendship run down his face. And then all of a sudden, it's like the tears and the joy of resurrection begin to dance with each other.
Yeah.
And he calls out Lazarus' name, and it's crazy joy because it was such a loss. And I mean, what did Mary and Martha feel from Jesus' tears? Yeah. He didn't just show up and say, get out of the way, girls, let me take care of this. He entered into the pain with us. He entered in the pain of their unanswered prayers. And he enters in, and these tears are proof that he loved. For all of us, there will be people that won't sit at my table this year because they're not here on earth anymore. And that's sad. I miss them. One of my best friends passed away right around this time at 33. And it's I would do anything to have him back at this table. He brought so much joy into my world. And I miss him this Christmas. And for how many of us to return back to these seasons is very sad. Yeah. And then there's the joy of his daughter was at my house just a week ago. my friend Chris, his daughter Sophie is here at my house. And I'm the joy of seeing her and seeing Chris in Sophie's eyes. And then the pain of Chris is gone. And then the joy of one day we're all going to be back around a table again together. Yeah. And so there is this, my favorite story at Christmas time, other than the story of Jesus' birth, is the Charles Dickens' The Christmas Carol. And it's a man at the end of his life that is stuck. And he's chosen his prison, and he doesn't want to leave his prison in greed and self-protection. And he's visited by the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. And he gets the chance to become a new man. Come on. And as he looks back at his past and he looks at the horrific things he's doing in his present, and he looks into his future, he begins to go, I want to be a different man. And so I think for me, every year at Christmas, it's like looking back at childlike wonder. It's looking back at, there are things I would do different with my children when they were little.
Absolutely.
That's where grandchildren are the gift. Like I get to do it different, but at the same time, we have this window where we're like sharing that with our kids. Like I feel like I've apologized more to my kids in the last year, more than ever.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, I have a window right now of like being something different.
Yeah.
So they become something different.
Yeah.
And looking back at my past and realizing, oh, I'm just giving you what I have.
Yeah.
Like I can look back at Christmases and I'm like, I didn't give them my best. I gave them what I had. And I was really sad the Christmas of 2012.
Yeah.
And I pretended that I wasn't.
Wow.
And I put on the cape of the superhero dad. And I tried to be happy, and everyone knows I'm not happy.
Right.
Because I'm numbing my sadness.
Yeah.
And if I would have like in 2012 just started Christmas like, I'm so sad this Christmas. Your mom's still sick and I can't fix it. And I feel so powerless. There would have been some serious joy.
That's true.
You know, but I get the Christmas of 2024.
That's right.
And my children are still in my house.
Yeah.
It's a man and a woman in my house now, but they're still my kids.
That's right.
And I get the chance to wake up Christmas morning and not be Scrooge and like do it again and give them my sadness and give them my joy, give them my fear, and then give them my heart and not hide it from them.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you. I can't help but this theme of presence has been just such a theme in this conversation. Being present to where I am, present to where God is. I'm thinking about St. Augustine. Grant me, Lord, the wisdom to know myself, that I may know you. Mm-hmm. And that table, the table that Christmas really can be and is for us as believers.
Yeah.
I love how much we're circling around this theme that God is here.
Yeah.
And as much courage as I have to bring who I actually am, where I'm actually at to this table, is to the degree that I'm going to receive.
Yes.
And I think people would listen to this conversation and feel grateful for the vulnerability. And I hear where it's going. It also is meeting that some of those questions of like, what do I do if I'm in a winter season?
Yeah.
Like what are some practices? Mm-hmm. And so much of the theme of this conversation has been unplanned around the theme of like, be present to your life.
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
Stop, listen.
Yeah.
What is God saying?
Right.
What question is he
Dance
asking?
with time, slow down.
Dance. Oh, I'm thinking even, again, the beauty of us just having this conversation is such a gift. I'm thinking about my own lyrics in Time Has a Way.
Yeah.
And they're mysterious. There's parts of them, if someone wanted me to sit down and analyze, I honestly couldn't.
Yeah.
But maybe in 10 years I'll really be like, and I'm hearing that in Sing Winter.
Henry will be doing the podcast with you in 10 years.
Yes.
Dad, what did you mean?
I'll be very sober and gray and teary. But that the tension in some of my lyrics on the album, which I felt so much permission to bring to the table, the family table that we were at, it's just like, time, I'm hearing the dance.
Yeah.
Time has a way of pushing us onward.
Yes.
Like there's a pressure there.
Yeah.
It's not negative.
Right.
But there's a pressure. Time has a way of pushing us onward to step out on the water.
Yeah.
Which, we all know what that picture that alludes to.
Yeah.
But it's the waters of our life. It's the moment you're talking about.
Right.
It's am I going to be honest? Will I step out on the waters of this Christmas? Because I feel more honest than I've ever been.
Yeah.
And surrender the pressure to know.
Wow.
Like the control that we all want. And like, man, it's been referenced here, but like, what if we would be those sons and daughters that would actually open our hands and surrender our nicely wrapped Western Christian understanding of what Christmas is, and be like, it's messy, it's holy, it's disruptive, it's moving, it's changing. It's like, it's a dance.
Yeah, it's true.
And I wonder if when you think about that place of presence and the emotions that feel more complicated, I think most people would even associate a winter season.
Yeah, totally.
With the feelings we're talking about,
Yeah.
the complicated feelings.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the wide range. But I wonder if you, in tandem with the stories that you're sharing from your own life, if you'd be willing to just share a couple of the practices that have helped you to stay present to your heart, to stay present to the Lord in these winter seasons. That might be very long. It might feel like a very long night. What are some practices that have just helped to keep you grounded?
Yeah, it's good.
Keep to your own heart, but also to one another, to your children, to community.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, I think honesty would be one of the biggest practices. I think we definitely have a very high value for, just making food, sitting down as a family. When I'm thinking about our family unit, even as a community, we practice this a lot. And like, just the space of like, where am I actually at?
Yeah.
And not really practicing, not assuming that people know where I am. And giving the gift of like, this is where I am. Like I'm sending out the signal, like this is where I am. And oftentimes in that, like you get so deeply met that it does help. It helps the feeling not grow into such a like desperate, lonely place.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times sadness and winter seasons can be very lonely. And I think that's right. I think there is a loneliness to it. Yeah. And I think that oftentimes we don't want to be a burden to people. So we don't want to tell people what's really going on. We don't want to be honest with where we're at. We don't want to be a burden. Yeah. And so sometimes we choose loneliness when we don't need to. Wow. And I think that when I think back on like, man, like when I call my friends, when I give them the gift of my honesty, they always meet me with so much tenderness and grace and mercy. They never say like, that's nice, but could you stop? You're making me uncomfortable. Could you stop feeling like that? They're quick to like, what do you need? Like, do you want to go get coffee or go out to dinner? Or like, do you want me to come over? And so I think a practice for me, I would say for sure, is just, can I do the simple work of honesty and to trust that the people in my life want to meet me there? Yeah. And I think as a family unit, we do that a lot. Like we sit down, like we make a nice meal, like where are you? Like, where are you? And like, man, today's been really hard. Like, oh, that makes sense. And we don't try to fix it. We just listen. Yeah. So I think giving like the honesty of where I am, and then giving mega key, and then giving the gift of listening to others. I think we're both mega fixers because we've been in ministry for 25 years and we have a lot of answers. And the practice of listening and not giving answers is a very beautiful thing, especially when people are in really dark, hard seasons. Yeah. Oftentimes, what we really want is just to be able to talk. Yeah. And oftentimes relief comes by just knowing that we don't have to have a conclusion. But there's just space to talk. Yeah. This is how I feel, and I don't need anyone to fix it. I just need to say it out loud so I don't feel so lost. And so lonely. So does that make sense? I think the key would be on both sides. The key of like, oftentimes we choose loneliness unnecessarily, and we don't trust that our friends actually really want to be there for us. Yeah. And then the flip side of just like learning to be a listening presence, learning to ask better questions of people when they're in really hard spaces. And like, I often practice with people I love. Like when I know they're in a hard place, I'm just saying, what do you need? Like, I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend to know what you need. Like, what do you need? Like, a dear friend of mine lost a parent in the last year. And it's like grief is so mysterious. It's so hard. And every heart handles it completely different. And it's not meant to be quickly gone through. I think actually the seasons of grief honor how much love there was for the person we're grieving. Wow. And those waves that come, after a year or 2 years or 10 years. It all just is honor. It's dignifying the relationship when we actually can enter into it. But I'm not even going to pretend to know what that's like. And so it's a practice for me in winter when I'm watching my friends go through winter seasons.
I love that.
Of just like, what do you need?
Yeah.
I need to just sit in silence and watch them. Maybe great. Like, what do you need? I just need to talk nonsense because it's so irrational in my head. Great. Let's do that. Like, and just giving space for that. And then I would say my personal practice, like when I do a lot of breath work, I do a lot of meditating on just the kindness of God and not becoming obsessed with the breakthrough of God. I think as someone who has dealt with an autoimmune disease since I was 17, it's very easy to become obsessed with practices getting me to breakthrough.
Man, that's so good.
And I think I've had to learn along the way that like, oh, I'm actually here to just practice presence with the Lord. I'm here to listen. I'm here to do simple. I'm going to just breathe and just meditate on the kindness of the Lord. I'm going to meditate on his mercy, on his patience, on his joy, all those things. And then slowly I find that very simple breakthrough. And that's the breakthrough you need in everyday life. I would say, like, oftentimes we just want this big magical, like, and I just think it's unrealistic. I don't think it's actually sustainable in everyday life. But to be able to practice the simple, patient moments of like, oh, as I've sat and just gotten still and just meditated on the goodness, the kindness of God, all of a sudden, oh, he's the lifter of my head.
That's true.
And this, the Lord, like, I feel myself lifting. I feel something passing through. And I'm like, okay, like, that was good.
Come on.
Instead of frantically, like, be the lifter of my head, be the lifter of my head. And there's moments where contending is powerful and beautiful. And I've done all of it. And I love all of it. Yeah. But the daily, for me personally, is the patience.
Come on.
It's the, like, training my mind to be with him.
Come on.
And to let his presence affect me.
Come on.
So good.
And that has been very meaningful to me in the, like, because I would say my illness has been a thread of winter through my whole life. Even when I'm in the highest joy, it's still there.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn to, like, how do I be fully present and not be overwhelmed by the sorrow of illness and what it's meant for our family. And then also to just be insanely grateful. And so I think what I would say to people in the practice is, like, it is a paradox. Yeah. It's not supposed to be boom, boom, one or the other. I'm either happy or I'm sad. I'm like, no, you can be happy and sad at the same time. You can be joyful and sorrowful at the same exact moment. Like, all of that is meant to, like, I can, if I sit and think about our friend Chris, I get filled with so much joyful nostalgia because he made me laugh like unlike any other person that we knew in our life. And then right beside that is the, like, what I would give to just have a cup of coffee with him right now. Yeah. So much has changed since he passed. And, like, but then I'm right back in the, like, God, he made me laugh so hard. And all of it, it's just like this beautiful, full expression of who the Lord is in our lives. And so I hope that makes sense. I just really think does. Like, oftentimes we want, like, no, but what's the answer? There's not really an answer to life. Like, there's not quick answers, but there's a way we can move through it and learn to be more ourselves and learn to be a reflection of God himself. Wow. Image bearers that carry the ability to fully engage with whoever we're sitting with. Yeah. So those are just some simple so thoughts.
Good. A couple quick thoughts about, man, I just learned so much from you. But you were asking just some keys to walking through seasons of sadness, practices, long nights, dark nights of the soul. Think about that story that Pete Scazzaro tells in Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, a book that saved our life. He tells the story of, in the Midwest, there would be blizzards that would come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And one of the practices is they would tie a rope from the barn to the house. And many times the barn and the house weren't that far apart. But sometimes blizzards would come so fierce and so fast that the farmer trying to get from the barn to the house would get lost in the blizzard. And they would sometimes die feet from their front door because they couldn't see their house. And so they would tie a rope. And the rope would lead them when the blizzard would come. When they didn't know which way was north or south or east or west, they couldn't find their house.
Yeah.
The rope would lead them home. And I think after 25 years of marriage, 25 years of walking with Jesus, our passion is what the 18-inch journey is our passion is that people would make it with God for the long haul.
That's right.
That they would not lose their
Yeah.
hearts.
Yeah.
Jesus said, in this world, you'll have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome. And he was giving us a rope to lead us in the blizzard. The blizzards of a death happening, the pain of unanswered prayer, a miscarriage, a loved one in the family suddenly gone.
Yeah.
All the things that life comes. Like in this world, you'll have trouble, the trouble of life. What is the rope that leads us back home? And I've recently been thinking about, I think the scripture says a cord of 3 strands isn't easily broken. And looking back on our journey of moments when I got lost in the blizzard and I reached out and found a rope. I mean, can you imagine grabbing that rope in the middle of a blizzard?
No, I cannot.
And just like, this takes me back home.
It's everything.
I think the 3 cords of the rope that have brought us back home over and over again. It's the cord of community, the cord of solitude, and the cord of the scriptures. It's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for me to be alone.
Yeah.
And how many times you reflect back to me who I am,
Yeah.
the beauty and the pain.
Yeah.
And you reflect back to me. You're on our core leadership team. Moments where I'm like, guys, I missed it, and I'm owning my mistakes. And then moments I forget who I am, and you guys are pouring encouragement over me. Like, it would not be good for me to be without community. The cord of solitude, though. Bonhoeffer says, beware of the person who can be in community but can't be alone. But also beware of the person who can be alone but can't be in community. And so I need those moments alone. And it's in those moments of solitude that I practice silence and I find out where I'm at. I even recently, as a musician, you would think I listen to music a lot. And I've recently realized, like, man, I don't listen to music a lot because music actually causes me to feel, and I want to stay in control of my feelings a lot. This morning, like, I put on the Christmas album, put my headphones on, walked around the farm, and I'm like practicing silence. I'm listening, but I'm listening to the song. And I got halfway through the Christmas album and it unlocked tears inside of me.
Wow.
And I was like, I was scared of these tears this morning, and I didn't want to listen to this music. I just wanted to do stuff for God. And when I finally slowed down and just listened, God started washing my feet with his kindness. So the cord of community, the cord of solitude, and then the cord of the scriptures. And the scriptures are that rope.
That's
like
right.
they don't change. The sailors would have these things called fixed stars, because when they got on a boat and you're out in the middle of the ocean, you don't, if the sun set, you don't know which way east, west, north, or south is, but you look at these stars, they don't change. And in the middle of Jesus' solitude, in the middle of the battle, he says, it is written, man does not live on bread alone. It is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. That was the rope that the Son of God needed in the middle of his wilderness to bring him back home to the Father in the middle of his battle. So take one of those things away. You just have community and you just have solitude, and you take the scriptures away, you start getting pretty weird. You just have the Bible, but you take the cord of community out, and you become a Pharisee pretty quickly. You just do solitude and you take community out, and you get weird quick. But you bring those 3 cords in together, and it brings you back home to make it for the long haul.
Come on. Wow.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good.
Thank you both for this conversation.
Yes.
So rich.